On this episode of the LTD podcast, I'm joined by co-founder and CEO of Draganfly, Cameron Chell. I'm really excited about my conversation with him, as well as all of the things we're going to talk about with his background and Draganfly as a whole. So without further ado, let's talk drones. All right, as I said, I am joined today by a friend of the droning company, friend of the drone geek, Cameron Chell. He is the CEO and co-founder of Draganfly. But Cameron, I mean, your background is a lot richer than just Draganfly. I mean, you've got an entrepreneurial spirit that really can't be topped. I mean, you've got a lot of other things, including business insights as well as MetaWorks. Tell us a little bit about where you started and what brought you to where you're at with Draganfly and the vision for Draganfly.
Wow. Well, thanks very much. And thanks for all the work that you're doing for the entire industry. You're a great voice in the industry. And as I mentioned earlier, it's, you're a leading voice already, and it's only going to get bigger. So great work. Love your perspective. And I know a lot of other people do too. So kudos and thanks.
Thank you.
Entrepreneurial wise, both my parents were entrepreneurs. And, small business owners is what they called it back then. My dad was a rancher and a butcher. My mom was a local florist. And, so I didn't know anything else. And so when I was 14, I started digging ditches, installing underground sprinkler systems and, agricultural and then residential and then golf course irrigation systems. And I designed a little valve that was my strategic differentiator, though I didn't know that that's what it was at the time. And then I did that, kind of for 7 or 8 months of the year. And at the same time, I had basically I built PCs and XTs and ATs and anybody who remembers those days in the 90s and sold them to all the local town folk and farmers and stuff. And then I sold my irrigation business and I bought 1 hour Photoshops and the differentiator there was I fixed up the machines. I bought old machines and fixed them up, and that's how I kept my costs down. And anyway, I just learned by school of hard knocks, and I've blown up a ton of things that have not worked. But eventually, when you don't know how to do anything else, and you don't have anything to fall back on, no education and such, you just kind of keep learning. And that's I wish it was more illustrious than that, but it's a grind every day, and it's still a grind every single day. And I got my first break in 1995. A company called FutureLink, and what we're doing is we built servers. And this is when this thing called the internet was just coming out. And our idea was that, well, you could use the internet to call up on these servers and use the software on the servers. Mm-hmm. And so our first market was we went to small audit firms, so they wouldn't have to carry in these transportable computers, which were the size of sewing machines, in to do their audits. They could use this thing called the internet and use 14.4 or 28.8 modems if they were really advanced and dial in to the servers and use the accounting software and help run the audits. And so we got hooked up with a company called Great Plains, which at the time was like a leading accounting software, which since then is bought by Microsoft, and now that's Microsoft Dynamics, which is massive ERP system. And so Great Plains, unbeknownst to most of the world, Great Plains was the first SaaS company in the world. Okay. It wasn't Salesforce. It wasn't Salesforce was a year or so after, and we started doing this work, and then Microsoft bought Hotmail, and they needed a place to host it, and so like all of this kind of stuff started catching on, and then this internet boom happened, and we just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And then I started learning a ton about the capital markets, and the company went public on NASDAQ. And typical story, I'm mid-20s, $1 billion market cap with $1 billion. It was really $1 billion, and I got fired. The whole. And then I got into the payment space, and then me and another guy actually from Draganfly started a company with his brother, and we put cameras on the outside of the International Space Station. And yeah, it's just been one thing after the other. But for the last almost 15 years, it's been all Draganfly. And the drone industry is not an easy industry, especially when the regulations didn't exist up until the last couple of years. So anyways, that's a condensed version of kind of how we got to where we're at today.
I mean, that's quite the portfolio and resume. That's fantastic. I mean, it sounds like, though, you know what, I want to go backwards just for a moment. It sounds like you definitely had your share of adversities. I mean, you were fired from a job that was extremely lucrative and made you a lot of money. What was that like? I mean, there are a lot of people out there that listen to this podcast that are business owners, whether it's large, small, whatever the case may be, and experiencing a setback is never a part of the plan. So, you know, how did you bounce back from that and get into where you are now with Draganfly? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I was just furious, right? I was mad and I was prideful and I was indignant and I was going to prove a point. And so I went out and I worked hard at proving a point. And the interesting thing is I kept running into the same brick walls. And so, you know, that's youth and enthusiasm and determination and all of the things that are really important. But with a little bit of maturity and some even much harder knocks and a little bit of experience now, I should have been fired. Yeah. And in fact, they probably hung on to me too long. They should have fired me sooner. And that's experience, right? And I've made amends with those people, and I work with those people, the ones that are still around or alive anyway. And some of them, you know, yeah, we're close friends and we're business associates and we do lots of things together. And that's just those are things that, you know, if you're going to be successful, you know, some people just have it, right? And I was definitely not one of those people. I'm somebody that has to learn, unfortunately, from hard knocks. And so, you know, I've had a lot of humbling experiences, and that was one of them. It certainly wasn't the hardest, most humbling experience I've had since then. You know, it set me up for a series of humbling experiences to get to a spot today where, you know, hopefully I'm a better and smarter businessman and a better representative for our shareholders.
Yeah, I mean, look at you now. I mean, Draganfly is one of the big names in commercial drone manufacturing and application as well. And that's really something that I've dove into, you know, headlong at this point. I've grown very close with your team and some of the projects I've been working on. And, you know, what I want to hear from you is the vision behind Draganfly, because there's two sections of this audience. There's the commercial people that are already in enterprise. They already are very aware of Draganfly, but maybe want to know a little bit more. And then there's the audience that looks to that as their future. They're the small business owners that fly prosumer drones and small commercial drones to sort of do smaller projects that are looking to graduate into more of a commercial or enterprise sector of the industry. So tell us a little bit about Draganfly. Introduce us and tell us some of the nuances of that company. Yeah, you know,
I think it's you know, so Draganfly is arguably the oldest commercial drone manufacturer in the world. You know, since '95, Zen and Dragon started it, and I put an investment group together and bought it and co-founded via the fact that I vented in the technology that we were working with on Draganfly at that time. So there's a great pedigree and a great history and all that type of stuff. But it's important to know we're still a very small company. We're still a very, very small company. And I mean, that's changing very, very quickly. But you know, no other North American manufacturer has. The reason that we're the oldest is everybody else has gone out of business. Mm-hmm. Like whether it was Airware, Air Lily, GoPro, 3D, like they've all gone, and they all had hundreds of millions of dollars behind them. And, you know, they pre-scaled because there's this incredible opportunity in the commercial space, but there wasn't regulation to support it. So the ROI just couldn't be built up because candidly, you couldn't do beyond visual line of sight. Like if we really get down to the bottom line. And so we very, like, you know, so, you know, the analogy that I think of is, you know, if you're going to go out and you're going to play a golf game, there's two games you can play. You can play to score, or you can play to become a better player. Mm-hmm. And I would like to think, you know, so if you go to play to become a better player, you may take the riskier shots, or you might try the harder things, or you might, you're doing things not necessarily to get the best score that day. Yeah. And so it's a much longer game that you're playing. And we realized quite quickly that listen, DJIs of the world have 10,000 engineers at their height. They had, you know, incredible subsidy. They have incredible intellect. Like we weren't going to compete with them at that level. And so we really had to pick our spots and candidly, you know, wait for the right time in history to unfold. So I would love to say that, our hopeful future success is because of brilliant strategy and engineering. And like really, it's more about like patience and like waiting it out than anything else. And so what's unfolded, so we relied on our services business. We relied on the contract engineering we did for military contractors. We relied on, we'd do any work for anybody, but, our typical business was done with public safety. And so these were, sheriff's departments or U.S. Marshals or whoever who typically would buy, they were going to buy a GMC truck or a Ford or a Dodge before they're buying some other, thing, just because, it's made here. And so that kind of became a bit of our ethos. And then so when two things happened, one, the security concerns, like nothing collects data better than a drone. It's just unbelievable, right? And so when the realization about the security risk around that, whether it's foreign national or not, or whether DJI did stuff offside or not, or like that's not the argument I want to get into. The fact is, nothing collects data better than a drone. So that had better be secured. So you need to put protocol and process clearances, et cetera, in place to ensure that data is secure. Because whether you're a government or whether you're a forestry company that we just deliver terabytes of LiDAR data and your yield analysis, your disease detection, your water tables, there's nothing more important to your business. And so, that is your competitive advantage, is your information. And so we've really had to play a very, very long game in terms of like where Draganfly is going to be. So even though on the numbers basis we're really quite small, our capabilities, especially for a company our size, it's just unreal what we're able to do. I'm always surprised by it, and now we see that starting to scale. So in some respects, we've been very pragmatic, but we've had to be. It's been the only strategy that's been available to us, and now we're in a spot where we've got an incredible outlier situation that's happened with Ukraine. We've got regulation that's coming together. We've got technology dropping. We've got security concerns, valid security concerns, not about another company, but just about good process and protocol and clearance, coming into play. And so now, now we're after 20 some years, we're in the right spot at the right time, which does not denote anything smart other than just, resilience.
No, absolutely. I love your analogy about the golf game, because as a golfer myself, not a good golfer, I can definitely appreciate what you're saying in that there's the playing to develop and there's playing to win. And when you're at the stages that I'm at, where you're shooting in the 90s on a really good day, you're not playing to win ever, because there's tons of other golfers that are better. You're playing to get better. So I really appreciated that. I also appreciate, like you said, the patience that Draganfly shows. And, the thing that I've seen that I'd like to know a little bit more about in the thought process is the people I've interacted with at Draganfly seem to be like cream of the crop types of folks. I'm talking to Corey Larson. I'm talking Zach Rolfe. Those are the two that I had the most interaction with from your company. But your team's small, your company's small, but the people you have seem to be heavy hitters in terms of their professionalism, their knowledge within the industry, and how to get things done and how to work towards a goal or initiative. Can you tell us a little bit about the ideology behind, working with a smaller team?
Well, listen, I personally believe, and this isn't my philosophy, I've adopted this philosophy, and that is the only competitive advantage or strategic differentiator that a company has is their culture. Mm-hmm. So somebody's always going to out-engineer you, somebody's always going to outspend you, somebody's going to always outsell you, somebody's always going to, right? But your culture can be your difference, right? That can be your differentiator. And so, and candidly, I don't think that we've done a great job on fostering a culture. What I do think we've done a decent job on is that we have an ethos. So one, we have an incredible history that started in Saskatoon, and an incredible team there that absolutely is just like nothing exists outside of the world of drones, right? They're just just obsessed. Like they don't even. It's like a fish. Like they don't know that there's a world outside of water, and so it's just a beautiful ecosystem to work within. And then from an ethos standpoint, we're really lucky to attract people that are passionate. And a big part of my Draganfly journey, for whatever that's worth, started on 9/11. And so so I was at the base of the towers on 9/11.
Wow.
And security to me and to the people that that I get to work with is incredibly important. It isn't about like you can be the best person in the world, but you got to be smart about the old analogy. Do I want to be a gardener in a war, or do I want to be a warrior in peacetime that gardens? And I would then I would rather us be warriors that act in peacetime and garden. And so that's why, we don't build kinetic devices. We don't build things that shoot and kill people. We definitely sell into the defense sector. We definitely sell into security systems. But the point of the whole story is the people that we're able to attract are people that are really, really passionate about what we do. They're really, really passionate about what drones can do. And the majority of our people also really understand that the airframe is incredibly important because it's the base of everything that you go from. But the drone industry isn't about the airframe. The drone industry is about the data, right? The drone industry is about what the drone does. And when you look at use cases like humanitarian delivery, when we're delivering insulin and rape kits into besieged cities in the Ukraine, and we're doing that not getting paid at first. Now, we're in a great situation now, but we've earned our stripes to get into that position. But even if we hadn't, we'd do it again. We would absolutely do it again. And I wouldn't be the one leading that charge. I certainly go over to Ukraine because I think a leadership, can't expect people to do those things unless they're going to do them themselves. But believe me, I was not the first in line. Like there was our people want to be there and they want to help. And whether it's there or India or disaster relief or public safety, that's the folks that we're lucky enough to attract. And like attracts like. So the culture is kind of starting to drive itself, and it's bigger than anybody that's there. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah. And it exudes that. Draganfly exudes that idea that there's a culture of people that are passionate about it. And like you said, it's sort of like a fish that doesn't know anything outside of water. When you're in the nitty gritty with your team, it's amazing the knowledge base that they have and just how passionate and driven they are to make your solutions better and better and fit the needs of the industries that you're trying to address. I do want to take another step back and, ask, you mentioned about airframes, you mentioned about you being at the base of the towers of 9/11 and sort of that being the, light bulb moment for, how do we utilize this type of technology to not just, for protection, but also for information gathering. What was the initial thought when you started to think about the first prototype for a Draganfly drone? You have several platforms there that we'll talk about here in a couple of minutes, but what was the initial thought? What was the vision that you had when that first hit your mind?
Yeah, well, probably the best, I'll be candid, 6-7 years ago, 8 years ago, the vision was how we make payroll, right? Well, how we made payroll was like doing services and contract engineering for military contractors. That was like, there was no vision around what it was like, how are we going to get through next week? So that's one. But where that's grown to is actually we have a great product team. We have a great operation team. Paul Mullen leads our team there. And on this latest version of drones that we've come out with, we really took a strategic look at where we thought the industry was going to go. So the whole prosumer space, we're never going to compete there. And like the DJIs, the Autels, the Skydios of the world, they crush it. They're amazing. Like. And they can have that market too. It's just that's a tough gig, and they're really, really smart, well-financed people. When you get into the industrial side, where you're really taking advanced technologies and moving them into market, that's where I think we start to shine. So the Commander XL drone that's really our kind of flagship right now, is really designed to be a modular drone that's a workhorse. So I kind of think it like the World War II Jeep or the 1990s, Humvee. Like this is the base platform where you can now put a whole bunch of other, you can build things on top of it. So that XL drone is look, it's a 24 pound drone that carries 23 or 24 pounds of payload. It's under the 55 pound weight limit. It's likely one of, if maybe not the most efficient drone in the market today. All the latest technologies in it at the best cost prices that we could get to. But, there's already dozens and dozens of different payloads that just clip onto it. Yeah. And so, and if we look at DJI, like they moved away from their M600. So this is really also an M600 replacement. Now it's twice the drone not because DJI couldn't do something amazing, but it's twice the drone that an M600 is. It's only 4 rotors. It carries twice the payload it does. But that M600 is out of the market now. It's discontinued. And so all of those are getting replaced in the market. And our system, all the payloads of those M600s just clip on, right? And they're integrated in and everything else. So there's that whole replacement market. But what we're also finding in particular, not just in industry, but in defense, this is a platform that's just like, hey, this is kind of like a catch-all that does 80% of everything that's needed out there, 50-minute flying time. But no, listen, this thing isn't going to fit into your backpack, and you can't run away with it on a 2-man patrol. Right. I mean, that's the Skydios and of the world, and a few of the other great competitors out there. But if you want something that wants like excessive battery life, huge sensor capability, electronic warfare, jamming capabilities, heavy lift capability. We've got multiple fire departments out there that are implementing that for this coming fire season, to carry chainsaws up the mountain, to like that type of, and, it's easy to replace, can train quickly on it. That's what we were really looking for in this particular drone. Then we've got, so that's really where we felt the industry was at, and that's our signature. Now we got a heavier lift drone and that's going to be a big market. We're not into air mobility. We're not going to go there. That's not our game at all. Yeah. But we'll do heavier and heavier lift drones, more and more sophisticated type utility functioning drones. And we'll start doing more sensors too. So we produce our own LiDAR system now, really important to us because all those sensors are going to go the same way that the drones. They're all going to become, I'll call it restricted products, incredibly information that they're gathering, so they need to be, locked in with, North American made, kind of controlled goods, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a bit of the philosophy around where we're going.
And it shows, and you mentioned the Commander 3, which at the recording of this video, we're in process of getting a video that talks a little bit more about the Commander 3. I visited a facility that you own in Texas with some of your team. Zach Rolfe was sort of my liaison, and he was the guy that showed me the ins and outs of the Commander 3. The thing I would say is, my observation is absolutely, it's not something that's going to fit in a backpack. It's not something that's modular. I was telling friends that were sending me messages asking all about the Commander 3 when I was posting pictures of it. It's about the size of a coffee table in terms of how long it is and about how wide it is. Yeah. So it's not that type of a drone, but I'll tell you what I was really impressed about. I was impressed about the modularity and just how easy it is to set up. Breakdown was probably a 2-man job, but the setup, Zach was able to do that in roughly 10 minutes. So if you're talking about, a large platform drone that has a payload that's about equal to its weight, it's capable of carrying something that's about its own weight, and is easy to fly. That was the other thing, is I got a chance to actually control the drone while I was there. And I think that's really a great selling point for this particular drone is, if you've had a pilot on staff, or if you have somebody that you're training to fly a drone, this thing is just about as easy to control as your standard box drone that you get from the DJIs, from the Autels. Yeah. You put it up in the air. It's got some nuance to it, but overall the experience is almost identical. So it's super easy to learn. I felt comfortable behind it, flying it for the very first time. But I do want to talk a little bit about those payloads. I talked with Zach about some of the boxes that you had, some of the storage boxes, the ability to deliver medical supplies, to deliver a variety of different things in those boxes, as well as I got to see the thermal attachment that was that he had there on location. What I was really most fascinated about was the versatility of this drone and the modularity of it too. Just how easy it was to swap parts on and off, how easy it was to swap payloads in and out. Tell us a little bit about its capabilities and what people can look forward to if they fly that drone.
Yeah, well, so first and foremost, ease of use was really important because it's a big drone. Right. Mm-hmm. But it's a big drone, but it's under that 55-pound, limit. So, people aren't getting special exemptions to fly it. So that we spent a lot of time on that user experience, assessing and tweaking and retweaking, and me yelling, get the product to market. And engineers never being happy with it. You can imagine it all going down. And so that's knowing your experience and such, that's really good. Once we're there on the pilot, because it all ends and starts with the pilot. right? So like we're really pilot centric. Whether they're behind, whether they're in a knock, right, or whether they're on the ground. Eventually, all those the knock guys are going to be on the they want to have confidence in what they do. So that's step one, and I think we're check marked there. We'll never not try to improve that, but check mark. And then obviously the payloads. And being able to come up with as many sensors, as multiple sensors, not necessarily affecting that flight pattern or capability, right? So you don't want to have big swings. Listen, I'm a good LiDAR pilot, but I put on this magnetometer, or I fly this, and the characteristics are crazy different, and all the rest of it. So the nuances of all those different payloads, where they fit, how they clip, how the balance works, all those types of things have been taken into consideration, and they're not all perfectly dialed in, but we're very conscientious around that, and we'll continue to improve around that. Now, why that's so important actually is because the variety of sensors that we can put on this thing is core to our overall strategy. So this is where we're actually now starting to be able to think about our strategy a little bit longer term than making payroll. And really our strategy is all about data. And so if at the end of the day, 5 or 6 or 7 whatever years from now, Draganfly will always be known as a drone company, but really we're a data company. And so this goes back to my cloud computing days and the opportunity to have built FutureLink, which was, I guess you can call it the first cloud computing company. They didn't call it cloud computing back then. But, and so, our objective is to be able to collect as many types of data as possible on a single platform and have them integrated so that when it feeds back into the information flow and the workflow of the company and resides hopefully on our servers where they're hosting it, right, they have got the most competitive data possible. And so if you've got, 2 or 3 different drones that you've got to swap out 2 or 3 different sensors on, your data collection, right, the whole thing starts to fall apart right there. But if you've got a drone of this size with the big batteries on it that we've got it, and you can carry 3 or 4 sensors and they can all integrate into a particular system. Now, all of a sudden, your efficiency of collecting the most important information for your company, your data, now all of a sudden it starts to exponentially compound, if you will, on itself as to the value of that data. Now, we've seen with AI, and we've got a great AI bench, small, but man, they're powerful. And that's the key. Like we hear a lot about AI right now, and the differentiator that all the underlying engines are going to get better, and the big boys are going to take care of that business. They're crushing it, and it's growing every day. It's getting smarter and better in all these different areas. The differentiator for any company is going to be their proprietary data. So the easier we can make it to take their specific data along with all the public data. So let's say you take all the public forestry data in the world and you add it into your AI engine, but now you add in your specific data about your reserves or your yields or your whatever into that, and your data is better than the other company's data, you have stronger AI and you're more competitive. Ultimately, that's where we want to go. So the philosophy behind the 3XL, beyond utility, or the real utility is how much information can we collect? How many different sources of data? Like in Ukraine, we're doing mine detecting missions. Well, at the same time, you can be flying sensors that are picking up depleted uranium. You're picking up weather patterns. You're picking up all kinds of things that have effect on information that you're now able to process using AI that you didn't know that was relevant. That's information that your competitor or your combatant or whoever never knew was even now you have competitive advantage. So ultimately, at Draganfly, our goal is to make our customers more competitive. That's our whole thing is all about how does a customer, when they work with Draganfly, be more competitive than anybody else in their industry. So the bit of a long explanation, I apologize, but that's really the philosophy behind the airframe of the platform. So people say, that's a commoditized business. Well, fine, we'll commoditize that business. But if you understand clearly that your design is incredibly, and engineering is incredibly important for that particular purpose, right, then I think we'll maintain a competitive advantage for our customer.
No, that's fantastic information to have, and it really tells a story about Draganfly, and it sort of sets the framework for what people can expect when they work with Draganfly, whether it's on a partnership basis or a client vendor relationship basis, whatever the case may be. It certainly does tell the tale, and I think to sort of apply it to the section of the audience or the listeners that are listening or watching this on YouTube right now, it's sort of like the principle that you are told by seasoned veterans that have gotten into drone businesses and own their own imaging companies is it's not just about being able to fly the machines. A lot of guys get into it thinking, I'm a drone pilot, I'm going to offer drone services. And it's so much more than that. It's what do you offer with your drones? Go above and beyond. I mean, you're not just flying the drone. What can you do with it? What can you tell your client with your drone, whether it's telling a story with visualization through pictures and videos, whether it's collecting data through telemetry data like mapping and surveying. There's a variety of different things that you can offer. You really have to make sure that your business is about data or storytelling rather than just, hey, I'm able to fly this machine.
Chris, you nailed it. And so if that 3XL can provide that smaller operator, of which I've been my entire life, the small business dude, right, is if I can buy a piece of equipment that can give me more options to service my customer, right, because I can fit 17 or 27 or 43 or whatever it is, different payloads on there, as opposed to having to have 7 different platforms to work with or whatever, then I'm going to be it doesn't mean I won't have other platforms, but I'm likely at least going to have this one platform because it takes care of 80% of my business.
Yeah, absolutely. So absolutely.
That's the market that we're going after.
And there's a ton of value in that. And the marketing term that I've seen used for the Commander 3 is the Swiss Army knife of drones. Yeah. And, I certainly, after seeing it in action, talking with your team about what its capabilities are and our conversation, I think that's the truest thing in marketing right now is that the Commander 3XL is a Swiss Army knife. It does offer just a variety of options for application. And I think that's really its strongest point. We're almost out of time here. One last question I got to ask you. So you're, talking to somebody that's new to the drone industry, whether it's somebody that's just starting a business out of their home office, or it's somebody that's looking to integrate drone technology on a larger scale. What would be your advice for them heading into the industry? What do you see as a trend in the industry, and how should they go about getting started?
Yes, so skill and knowledge are the two components, right? So definitely as a pilot, you need to have the skill. So practicing the hours, competency, safety, confidence, that your customer has confidence that you can do that business, that you work with great equipment, that, their data is going to be safe, it's North American built, or, whatever the case is. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is knowledge. So a lot of customers, they think they know what they want, and they know what they want, but they don't really know how to get it. Or a lot of times they don't know what's possible. And it's certainly not that the drone service company, as example, is going to tell the power company how to run their business. But the more that drone operator really understands the business, not just the mission, but the business, that's who I see is winning a lot of the work out there. So that when they're dealing with the company and they're dealing with somebody at a mid-level management who's got to deliver X, Y, and Z, that drone pilot knows what that mid-level manager is trying to accomplish. Not just, hey, I got to get them this data on time and it's got to be the cheapest price, but they really know what they're trying to accomplish. That's what I find are the folks out there that are winning the business. So, or whether they work in a pool, right? An agency, if you will, that's just contracting out to maybe a bunch of other drone piloting companies out there. The more that knowledge that they have about the actual business, I find the more value they bring to their missions. So those are the two things. And then getting into it is, listen, you got to pick a platform that you can grow with. So, you can pick a very small UAS platform from a foreign manufacturer, and they're going to be great, but they're likely at some level going to start to limit. Know the type of service that you want to do, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's not about who you get. It's know the business that you're going to be in. So those would be the things that I've all screwed up in the past that I would look out for again.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as a Part 107 commercial business owner myself, I got to say there's no truer words. Know what you're trying to accomplish. Know how to become proficient at not just executing the mission, but also providing your client with data and understanding what that data means. And then maybe one of the most important things to this getting started process is make sure you invest in platforms that are going to help you accomplish that goal. Because if you purchase like a DJI Mavic Air and you're looking to do very fine level detail mapping and surveying, you can generate maps and survey data from a Mavic using the right types of software, but it's not going to do the same thing that like a high level LiDAR unit is going to do. So keep that in mind when you're establishing that. But the only other thing I have for you, Cameron, is tell us a little bit about where people can find out more about Draganfly, can find out more about the Commander 3, social media, websites, anywhere they can go.
Yeah, so draganfly.com, so DRAGAN fly.com. And the reason it's got an A in it and not an O is because our original founder, legend in the industry, Zen and Dragon, that was his last name. So it's also why we're able to trademark Draganfly. So draganfly.com. It's got pretty much everything there. Certainly I'm as responsive as I can be on social and LinkedIn and a bunch of different places. I can't get to everything, but just keep being persistent and obnoxious, and eventually I can get back to everybody. But hit the info at. I think we got a great sales team. We got people that are super attentive. We certainly work at it. So we're always looking for creative ideas and great customers and stuff. And so find out more about us or join us. Excellent.
Hey, Cameron, thank you for your time today. I look forward to having you on the podcast again. This was a great conversation. I'd love to have you on again.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks, Chris.
Excellent. Hey, I'm Chris, the Drone Geek. That's Cameron Chell, CEO and co-founder of Draganfly. We are out of here. See you guys.